I just want to say that again, for so many people out there, use the stories from my guests to learn what they did and how they did it, right? And absolutely 100%, subcontracting is probably one of the strongest ways to and by the way, I went off because we started talking about some questions, but subcontracting, there's a couple of value there's a couple things that where I really believe that there's value to subcontracting. One is you get to learn the industry and you get to learn the business. And that proves critical because if you were to go out and get a prime contract, there's a lot of things out here, there are a lot of questions people are asking that they don't understand, right? What are the rules to complying with that prime contract? For example, my man who got the prime asked about subcontracting. That's great. But if he had been a subcontractor on a and I'm not telling him to go do that at this point, right? I love the jump out the plane and then build your parachute on the way down. I totally advocate that. If you can stomach it, I say jump. But it's not everyone can't stomach that. But if he was to start off and he was a subcontract under a prime, a lot of the documents that I have in my course, a lot of the agreements we have, a lot of the estimates that I have, the packages I have came from a $100+ million company. Why? Because when I worked for them as a subcontractor, they gave me the agreements to sign. They gave me the compliance docs. They gave me how they present their specifications. They gave me the submittals and how they submit them to the government. So they gave me my package that I need to be, when I'm in a position to become a prime, they gave me my whole package. And if you look at it from that standpoint of, wait a second, if I go and I subcontract and I work as a 1099er on a project, right? Even as a one-person show, look at it as a means to an end. I'm going to be accumulating a wealth of knowledge, right? And being paid. So you're being paid to learn. And then you're going to be accumulating a wealth of documentation. You're going to be making relationships with people who can eventually be partners and also not just teaming partners, that can also be partners to be primes, joint venture partners. So all of these things that are intangible benefits that really are hard to measure, a lot of the questions you're asking would be answered by you being a sub. Because when you're a sub, they're going to teach you, right? The prime's job is to help you be successful so that you can perform and deliver. So they want to teach you this stuff. So you can go in there and you're going to be in meetings with contracting folks. You're going to find out what works, what doesn't work, what's good, what's bad, what do the contracting officers like to see, what do they not like to see. You get to learn all this stuff. And all this is going to be great for your arsenal of tools, your toolbox, so that when you're ready to step out and become a prime, you already have all the documentation, you know, all of the ins and outs, you know, all of the players. Speaking of that, my one of my guests from last week, and we didn't even talk about her, who does logistics management, she was working as a 1099 contractor, helping with moving services. She didn't like the prime and how they were delivering and how they weren't present to the government. The government person suggested to her to start her business so that she can then do a better job of delivering excellence to the client. These are the things that happen to you when you're out there on the job and in the field. You can't gain that from sitting behind a computer. You can't gain that by simply just getting a certification. You can't gain that by simply paying someone to get on a GSA schedule. You've got to get out there and you have to get in the field. You got to get on there. I don't care if you're the water boy, the ball boy, if you the guys that on a basketball, you sweeping the floor. You have to get out there and be on the court and be in the field to be in this game, right? There's no better way of learning it and getting a grasp of how this thing works by being present. And so however that, like whatever that means and how you have to do that, you have to be present. It's funny because let me show you, going back to that article that we talked about, look at this first number one where they talk about where she writes here, which is in doing market research, right? Market intelligence, the first thing that this company suggests, investigate industry job postings. And you think to yourself, wow, you know who else suggested that? Craven, who works for VBox, Darcella, who's on my podcast, says sometimes when they don't open the front door for you, you got to go on a side door. So now, if you go to these job boards where they're actually looking for jobs to fill, Has anyone ever thought that maybe you can look at the job boards and see what jobs need to be fulfilled and suggest that you can do that job as a 1099er? Anybody ever thought about that? And then again, these are tricks that, I mean, it's coming from people who are like big time. They're charging $10,000 to teach a course. These, like, I'm sure if you were to reach out to them, there's several thousands of dollars for their education, right? And how to learn how to do this kind of stuff. But this is how you come in through the side door. This is how you come in through the back door, right? You go on there and you look at jobs posting and you find out what jobs are available. Then you go to the interview and you talk about how you can actually do that as a 1099 or maybe even a subcontractor. If you notice that they're asking for four I help desk support people, right? I like to go to help desk support. Then why not offer to come in as a subcontractor to be able to offer to provide them that service? So there's more than one way to skin a cat, as we've all heard, and so I just want to talk to you about that because, again, knowing the client, knowing the culture, right? You can't pay for that. You can't pay for having an understanding of the client's needs from inside the Pentagon, from inside the Oval Office, from inside NASA, from inside DHS. You can't pay to get that experience because the person who's selling you that is not there to be able to even offer it to sell it. It's the only people that actually know the internal politics, who are the key decision makers, right? Yeah, we all look at the contracting officer. We all look at the contracting specialist. But really, maybe it's Miss Sally over here who's the gatekeeper. And I remember reading articles about some of these high executive decision makers. The secretary might be the gatekeeper that's stopping you from getting into that opportunity. But you wouldn't know that because you're not out there in the field. You're sitting back, looking on a computer screen and seeing whose name is on the title and not really realizing that that person could have been promoted there for whatever reasons that we don't know of, and that that person who's actually the real decision maker doesn't hold the title, or they're not on the public posting, right? The real decision maker, she's not actually on that screen. You don't even know who she is because you're not in the office. You've never been there. You have to find a way to get into the room, to sit at the table, to find a reason, a justification to visit these folks. When I first picked up my opportunity for landscaping, we went to a small business office, and the small business officer, she said to us, because her office was on base, she goes, "You got to find a way to get on this base. You have to find a way. I'm not meeting you at the gate. I'm not giving you a pass. You have to find a way to get to me." That is to me, that's a test. Like, that's the first test out the door. It's like, wait, I got to figure out how to get on post to get to you, to see you. I thought you were the small business resource specialist. She goes, "Yeah, I am. But you got to come to me. If you want to get the resource that I have, you got to find a way to get to me." And that's where we talked about in my FedBizOps video. The last part was, and again, I know FedBizOps is gone, but the last thing was, how do you get access to a post? And I shared that story where, again, I signed up for a site visit for a project that I wasn't even interested in, just so that I could get they could run my badging, get my name, and they can approve me to get onto the base, just so I can visit the small business officer. So again, there's not always a direct path. There's not always a straight path. There's not always a someone lets you in and they go, "Oh yeah, here's an opportunity. Let me put you over here. Here's a contract. Let me put you over there." That's not the way this works. You have to get in at all costs.